Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to explain a movie named 65. Before the advent of mankind, other alien races were already exploring the rest of the universe. Of the planet Somaris, Mills is watching his daughter Naveen play around on the beach while he explains to his wife Alia that he's expected a 2-year exploration job. Usually he does short runs, but this time he wants extra money to pay for a treatment for Naveen's sickness. Then Mills teaches Naveen how to whistle with her hands before finally discussing the subject of his trip with her too. Sometime later, Mills is the pilot in charge of a ship that carries a crew in cryogenic sleep. One day, the ship encounters unexpected meteorite activity and gets hit multiple times by a chunk of meteorites. As the ship starts coming apart, Mills rushes to the cockpit and sends the emergency signal while guarding the ship to land on the nearest planet. The ship ends up breaking into 2 parts. As Mills watches the inevitable crash, he thinks about his daughter before falling unconscious. Minutes later, Mills wakes up to hear the computer say they're in an unknown location. He discovers that he has a piece of metal stuck on his stomach, so he painfully removes it. Next, he puts on his astronaut suit and begins investigating the ship to determine the damage, discovering the cryo chamber is compromised. After grabbing a laser gun just in case, Mills leaves the ship and walks into a pool of water where a mysterious creature swims around him. He also finds all the bodies of his crew and is devastated to notice none of them alive. After checking the whole ship of damage and realizing the escape pod is on the other half that landed somewhere else, Mills sends another SOS message saying he's on uncharted territory. Feeling stuck and hopeless, Mills grabs his gun with the intention of ending things, but memories of Naveen stop him from doing it. Then Mills grabs all the tapes with the messages Naveen has been sending him just to hear her voice again. Suddenly, the computer detects a working capsule nearby. Mills rushes to investigate and is surprised to find passenger Koa is still alive inside, and he immediately takes her out. On their way back to the ship, Mills notices a huge paw print on the ground, which reveals this planet is Earth 65 million years ago, meaning Mills is surrounded by dinosaurs. The duo makes it to the ship when night falls, and Mills spent the night dreaming of Naveen, demanding to know where she is. The next morning, Mills is determined to escape just to save the girl. He uses the ship's computer to find the other half of the vessel, but the scan can't locate it. Afterwards, Mills goes outside to explore the area and discovers huge bones that indicate how dangerous the local predators are. He is also hit by a hot geyser blast, which he never saw before. Once he recovers, he sees something shining in a distance. He realizes it's the other half of the ship, on a far mountain. A quick scan confirms it. When Mills begins to consider to take a path, he suddenly attacks by a small dinosaur. After some struggle with the creature, Mills pushes it to the ground and hits it with his gun in the head until it dies. There are more noises coming from the woods, and when Mills goes to investigate, he discovers Koa has left the ship. The girl begins running as soon as she sees him, and Mills runs after her until they both fall down into a ledge where they find a big dinosaur yet dead. Suddenly, the trees start shaking and Mills sees even bigger creature approaching, so he grabs Koa and drags her back to the ship. While he takes care of the wound he got when he fell, he tries to explain the situation. But it turns out they don't speak the same language and the ship's translator isn't working. To make his point, Mills spread a red powder on the tablet and draws a mountain with a pod to explain he must go there to escape. Koa joins him and draws her parent as she understands the word family. So to keep her calm, Mills lies and says that family is on the mountain too. Afterwards, Mills sends out another SOS message saying he's found a survivor while Koa finds the recording of Naveen. As she watches them all, it's revealed that during the first year of traveling, Naveen's illness got worse and she had to be sent to the hospital. During the first few months, her messages were happy and proud for her dad. But as time passed, she became angry with him because he wasn't there for her. When Mills finds Koa watching the tapes, he immediately turns them off and announces they're leaving. Once he has enough supplies in his bag, Mills and Koa begin walking through the wilderness, making sure to keep quiet not to attract predators. It's a long and arduous journey, but every time, Mills helps Koa when she falls or needs anything. They become a little more closer. One afternoon, Koa sees something glowing red in the sky, but she doesn't comment on it. Eventually, Koa becomes bored of all the walking and grabs some berries from a bush to throw on Mills just to bother him. Annoyed, Mills uses his scan to prove the berries are poisonous and orders Koa not to mess with them. Later, a huge bug lands on Mills' neck, and he kills it with his hand. His fingers end up covered in a disgusting sticky substance. Mills tries to brush it off on a tree, but the thing is so strong that he falls with a piece of bark stuck on his hand, which makes Koa laugh. To tease her back, Mills tries to touch her with his dirty hand, but their little game is interrupted when a small tree falls on them in front of them. There are some noises coming from behind of a ledge, and the duo finds a small dinosaur stuck in a pit of sticky substance. Koa feels bad for it and runs to help it out, but Mills thinks it's too dangerous. Since she won't listen, to make things faster, Mills helps her. The little creature walks away as soon as it's free, but only a few steps later it's attacked by a group of predators that kill it quickly. Mills drags Koa into a hiding spot so she doesn't have to watch her friend being devoured, but she can tell what's going on and cries. After the dinosaurs are gone, the duo continues their journey, stopping by a waterfall to wash and fill their water. Mills is worried about the state of his stomach wound, but watching Koa makes him think of Naveen, which is enough incentive to keep him going. Koa finds some pretty flowers and bothers him until he lets her put one in his hair. Minutes later, Mills' scanner loses the location of the mountain, so he decides to climb a tree for a better view and scan the area again. Suddenly, he finds a bug on his hand and shakes his arm off to get it off, but the movement causes the branch to break and falls Mills, dislocating his arm. While Koa helps Mills push the arm against back to a tree to put it back into place, a group of dinosaurs hears the noise and begin approaching. To speed things up, Mills makes Koa step on his arm for the final push, and now that he's better, he immediately grabs the gun to shoot at the creatures. He also tells Koa to run, and once she is far enough, Mills activates a few small bombs that quickly get rid of half of the dinosaurs. The survivors continue to jump on Mills, and he shoots them off one by one. Meanwhile, a bunch of flying dinos lands near Koa, so she begins crawling away to hide behind a tree. Unfortunately, the beasts from before find her and they're about to jump on her. Mills shows up and kills them all. However, there's one hiding that suddenly jumps on Koa from behind and drags her away with its tail. Mills quickly goes after them and scares the creature away with a shot. Now Koa is too scared to continue or even be near him. Thus, Mills sits down and patiently gives her more space. When it's starting to get down, Mills decides to whistle like he used to do for Naveen to try to calm Koa down. The trick works and Koa responds with her own family method of whistling. After lots of walking, the duo makes it to the cave where they spend the rest of the night. Mills sets up some sensors that will warn him of potential danger and uses his scanner to look at the sky, which finally makes him notice the meteorite is nearby. It's a small one though, he doesn't worry about. Koa suddenly distracts him by revealing she's brought one of Naveen's tapes with her. While Mills tries to sleep, he can't stop thinking about the day Alia contacted him to tell him Naveen had died in the hospital, which makes him cry. Later in the night, Mills is woken up by the sensors warning him of incoming danger. When he checks on Koa, he discovers a bug has entered her mouth and he immediately uses a tool to kill it, leaving Koa cough out all the remains. Then the sensors begin going crazy, and at that moment, a huge dinosaur appears from outside the cave. Mills shoots it a couple of times before he and Koa run back to a small hole at the back of the cave. The duo immediately begins looking for a path out, unaware of a smaller dinosaur is following them. After lots of walking and going through narrow spaces, the duo is upset to discover they've reached a dead end. Mills finds a small space between two rocks and tries to dig it to make it bigger, but after a few hours, he's barely made any progress and decides to give up. When Koa notices, she becomes furious and demands to try again as she keeps saying the word family, so Mills tries to tell her that they're dead, but she can't understand them. Thinking that he likes proper tools, Mills suddenly gets an idea. He uses a few bombs to make the hole big enough for a kid, then gives Koa the rest of the bombs to be safe while she explores. Koa crawls through the narrow hole and confirms there's enough room on the other side, so Mills tries to follow her. Unfortunately, the hole suddenly collapses and Mills desperately yells in frustration when he loses contact of Koa. At that moment, Mills hears the dinosaur approaching, thus he grabs his gun and returns to the previous cave, where he uses his scanner to know where the dinosaur is. When the creature tries to attack from behind, Mills expects it and begins shooting it, but the dinosaur hits him and makes him drop the gun. Then the beast grabs Mills and bites his arm, and Mills fights it off until he manages to reach the scanner and activates the screeching sound that hurts the dinosaur's ears. With the animal distracted, Mills retrieves his gun and kills it. Meanwhile, Koa makes it outside. She explores the forest alone and finds a huge bone that can be used as a weapon. She tries to wrap it up with poisonous berries and a big leaf before putting it away in the bag. Minutes later, Mills manages to leave the cave, and when he sees that the huge meteorite is coming closer, he uses the scanner to learn that the meteorite he saw before had only a broken piece of a bigger one that will hit in a few hours, triggering a catastrophic extinction event. He immediately goes looking for Koa and hears her scream when a dinosaur approaches her. Koa rushes to hide behind a tree while Mills runs in her direction, but he trips and falls right into a pit of quicksand. He tries to call for Koa, but he slowly sinks until he can't talk anymore. Koa hears Mills' call, so she gathers the courage and waits for the dinosaur to enter a tree trunk to throw the bombs before it starts running. With the beast dead, Koa can safely reach the quicksand and bend over a tree to help Mills come out of the pit. The duo reunites with a tight hug, and then Mills explains the meteorite to Koa in order to run through the last few miles. In the evening, the duo finally makes it to the base of the mountain. Mills ties some rope around Koa and she starts climbing up first, and then she smartly ties the rope in a very intricate way around the trees and rock until it makes Mills stand. Moments later, they find the other half of the ship, and Mills immediately turns to the computer to confirm there's a rescue vessel coming for them. Koa goes looking for her family and then eventually finds all the destroyed cyano tanks, so she gets furious with Mills for the lie. As she cries, Mills takes out a picture of Naveen and explains he lost his daughter while he was on job, meaning now he can't allow it to happen again. A sobbing Koa hugs Mills as he apologizes for everything. Suddenly, the smaller pieces of meteorite begin falling on Earth, so Mills and Koa run to get inside the emergency pod. When Mills is about to push the launch button, a piece of meteorite hits the ship and causes the pod to fall down, knocking the duo out in the process. Koa wakes up first and quickly presses the launch button, but the computer explains it can't launch in this position. As Mills begin waking up too, a huge dinosaur arrives and begins attacking the pod. Since the gun fell on the ground, Mills has a risk to leaving the pod to retrieve it, only to discover it doesn't work. While a second dinosaur joins the attack, Mills runs behind a piece of the ship and fixes the gun configuration. The dinosaurs suddenly surround him, so Koa grabs the Naveen tape and plays it on the scanner to create a hologram of Naveen outside the ship. Mills cries because he thinks he's getting to see his daughter one last time before his death, but it turns out that the dinosaurs are tricked and attack the hologram first. Using this distraction, Mills comes out and quickly kills the first creature while the other pushes the ship, trying to reach Koa. Mills immediately comes after it too, and after a first few landed shots, this dinosaur dies as well. Thanks to the creature's push, the pod is now in the first position to launch. Before Mills can return though, the beast that had shot back in the cave returns and begins chasing him. With a plan in mind, Mills runs to the geysers and makes the dinosaurs walk into a hot blast of water, which hits its face. Unfortunately, it doesn't cause much damage, but at first Koa shows up and stabs the dinosaur in the eye with a bone she prepared earlier. The dinosaur starts flailing and walks on top of another geyser. This time the blast hits on his stomach and successfully burns it to death. Afterward, Mills and Koa return to the pod and manage to take off right before the meteorite hits Earth, triggering the extinction of dinosaurs. When the pod leaves the atmosphere, the autopilot guides it to a meeting point where a rescue vessel will be waiting for them. Since they're going home, Mills closes his eyes and pretends that he's reuniting with Naveen soon, so Ko holds his hand to comfort him. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, do consider subscribing and liking it as well. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.